Turkey run by Brendan Connolly. As the year drew to a close, the children from the local primary school were asked to go to the local old people's home to keep the residents company. Eamon, Sally and Danielle were talking to Mr. Smith, one of the residents. It was 1 week to Christmas and Mr. Smith said, Eamon, Danielle and Sally, I have a Christmas story for you. It's called The Turkey Run. Would you like to hear it? The children gathered round and he began to tell the tale. It was a cold November morning and the children of the local orphanage were visiting the airfield. Connor, a tall dark-haired man, and Kieran, a short man with no hair, were showing the children around. They were fighter pilots. Connor was talking to one of the children, named Stephen. Stephen reminded Connor of his younger self, and as they spoke, Connor said, if you ever need any help, just write to me. Connor gave Stephen his address. Years passed, and in 1940, and with 3 weeks until Christmas, Connor and Kieran were waiting in the queue for their mail. Sure enough, there was a letter from Stephen. Connor read with sadness as Stephen described how there would be no Christmas turkey for the boys and girls in the orphanage this year. Stephen asked Connor if there was anything he could do to help. Just then Kieran walked into the room, to see Connor crying. Whatever's the matter, Connor asked Kieran. Connor showed him the letter. Kieran said, don't worry, Connor. We will go to the pub tonight and talk about it until we will think of something to do. Connor and Kieran instructed young pilots to fly Spitfires. They had learned how to fly together and now they are with each other in an airfield in Scotland. Kieran and Stephen were stationed in Tenbury. When Connor and Kieran's shift was over, they went to a local pub outside the airfield. Over foaming pints of beer, tried to think of an idea to get a turkey for the orphanage. Kieran said, why don't we borrow one of the Spitfires and fly to the Republic of Ireland? I know a village near Fort Hill, said Kieran. It's just across the border. Kilcurry in Louth. Connor said, that's mad. That area will be so well protected we'll never get near. Some of the young pilots, James, Eugene, Wick and Paul, overheard Kieran and Connor. We could create a diversion and you should be able to take one of the Spitfires, said James. Connor and Kieran said to James, Eugene, Wick and Paul, do you know you could get in a lot of trouble for this? Is that something you are okay with? It's okay. We will do it for the children in the orphanage. It's Christmas. How much trouble can we get in? Besides, we're always in trouble anyway. This is one we can tell the grandchildren in 50 years from now. The night grew dark as they huddled together to discuss their plan. By the time Kieran, Connor, James, Eugene, Wick and Paul returned to the airfield, it had started to snow. Connor and Kieran went into the airfield getting ready for the others to create their diversion. James, Eugene, Wick and Paul went through some fields at the back of the airfield. Once they reached the wall, they started to climb. When the sentries on duty spotted them, they moved away from the Spitfires, leaving only one guard. Connor and Kieran made their way to the Spitfire, but when they got to the plane, the soldier guarding it turned out to be an old friend of theirs. Connor told him the story about Stephen and the other children in the orphanage wanting a turkey for Christmas. Then Peter, the guard, a medium-sized man with red hair, said, hit me, Connor. I can't hit you, protested Connor. I can, said Kieran before punching Peter on the nose. Good, said Peter. Now tie me up. Kieran and Connor tied him up. They got extra fuel for the flight back and headed off before the snow got bad. As they were taking, the guards and soldiers saw them, leaving James, Eugene, Wick and Paul waving them off and with a lot of explaining to do. Kieran and Connor headed west and they went up high to get out of the snow blizzard. They seemed to be in the air forever until finally they hit the east coast of Ireland. They could see the lights of a town. It was Dundalk, a beautiful town in the Republic of Ireland. They headed north to a place called Fort Hill. The snow hadn't hit Ireland yet, but still they couldn't find anywhere to land. Just as morning was breaking, they passed over a farmhouse, which belonged to a man named Brendan. Brendan was awoken by the noise. He jumped out of bed and grabbed his pitchfork. Connor badly needed somewhere to land and Brendan's field was level and long. Brennan ran towards them shouting, do not land, you Germans. You'll scare my cow. Wait till I get my hands on ye. Just then Fiona and Carol Ann were cycling home from the local dairy farm after milking the cows when they saw Connor and Kieran trying to land the plane. They looked through the gate of the field and saw Brendan chasing after the aeroplane with his pitchfork. They threw the bicycles into the ditch, climbed over the gate and went over to see if Brendan was okay. Carol Ann was a medium-sized woman with short brown hair. Fiona was a wee bit taller with long blonde hair tied back. When Brendan saw Carol Ann, he started to settle down. Carol Ann and Fiona said, "Are you okay, Brendan?" Brendan said back, "The Germans are landing." Fiona said, "It's an English plane." "It's okay, Brendan, don't worry." All of a sudden the plane landed. It overran the field and crashed into the ditch. Connor and Kieran were shook up but thankfully not seriously hurt. They got out of the aeroplane and started talking to Brendan, Carol Ann and Fiona. Tom was passing on his tractor. He was one of the first farmers to have a tractor in the county, and he was very proud of it. Dad, he was always showing it off. He had seen the plane fly over and land in Brendan's field. He shouted over the gate from his tractor, "Is that the Germans?" Carol Ann shouted back, "No, English, not German." Angrily Tom said, "That's even worse." He climbed off his tractor, opened the gate and come over to talk to Brendan. Kieran and Connor told them all about the letter from Stephen in the orphanage. Tom said, "I'll get you a turkey. I'll be back in an hour." Sure enough, an hour later Tom returned with a big female turkey. She was still alive. Connor and Kieran said, "What are we going to do with a live turkey?" Tom said, "This way it will keep fresh." All of a sudden all the local people and the local guard said they would help Connor and Kieran by getting Jack to help repair the Spitfire, as he was a local blacksmith. Jack repaired the aeroplane. Brendan and Carol Ann got talking. Brendan said to Carol Ann, "Do you know I like you, Carol Ann?" She said yes. As Carol Ann was married, he simply said, "I know that, Carol Ann, but I just wanted you to know." Then Carol Ann gave Brendan a hug and Brendan said thank you. When Connor saw Fiona, he fell in love at first sight. He asked Fiona was she with anybody. She said no. Connor asked would she wait for him maybe and give him her address so that he could write to her. All the while there was a man keeping the lookout. His name was Joe. He met the English soldiers coming towards him. They stopped and asked, "Did you see an aeroplane fly over?" They were looking for deserters. Joe said yes, but sent them in the opposite direction. He then took a shortcut through the fields to get back to Brendan's house. He told everybody what had happened and said he'd go and keep them occupied until Kieran and Connor could get away. Just then Jack showed up. "She's ready to go. Load up, get that turkey on the plane and get going. Quickly now." All of a sudden it started snowing. Kieran and Connor said goodbye to everybody. Connor said goodbye to Fiona and give her a kiss. She said, "I will wait as long as I can, but it won't be forever." Connor promised he'd be back. High above the clouds, Kieran and Connor were flying smoothly when all of a sudden they could see that the orphanage was under attack by a German plane. They didn't have any ammunition on the Spitfire. Connor said, "I can't live forever, Kieran. We're gonna ram the German plane." Connor said, "Hold on to the turkey." At the last possible moment they pressed the ejector seats and shot out of the plane with the turkey. Their Spitfire rammed into the German plane and took it down. The German ejected from his plane too, and the three of them landed on the airfield. When the German saw them with a turkey, he said, "Is that a turkey?" Connor saw he had nothing to lose, so he told the German pilot the whole story. "How can I kill heroes such as you two gentlemen?" The pilots saluted each other as soldiers arrived to arrest the German pilot. Connor and Kieran were heroes when they took the turkey to the children in the orphanage. As Connor spoke to Stephen and gave him the turkey, he could see the children hadn't the heart to kill the turkey, so they kept it as a pet and called it Connor. After the war was over, Connor went to look for Fiona. He had lost touch with her and didn't know if she waited for him. When he got back to Fort Hill, he went looking for her. He went to the local Garda station and the guard on duty told Connor where she lived and took Connor to her. She had waited for him and they lived happily ever after. Eamon, Sally and Danielle asked Mr. Smith, "Is that true?" All of a sudden Mr. Smith's grandchildren walked in and said, "Well, James, are you telling that old far-fetched tale again?" James said, "It's not a tale. That actually happened a long time ago during World War II. I was one of the pilots. I was the James that the pilot asked to help to take the plane to help deliver the Christmas turkey." Just then Sally, Eamon and Danielle's teacher walked in. Her name was Debbie. She said, "Are you hearing a good Christmas story?" Danielle, Eamon and Sally said, "We sure are." The end.